Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into, well, a whole stack of sources about one of D&D's most iconic classes, the wizard.
Yeah, we've got these guides here from rpgbot.net breaking down the 2024 version of the class.
Right, and the spell list, too. They offer insights, optimization tips. It's all straight from these experts.
Think of this as, your shortcut to understanding what really makes the wizard tick.
From their basic abilities right up to the huge potential in that spellbook.
Exactly. And our mission here is to pull out the most important bits, give you the tools to see just how powerful and versatile a well-informed wizard can be.
So let's jump right into the core identity. According to these guides, what fundamentally is the wizard in D&D?
Well, the sources really position the wizard as the iconic arcane spellcaster. They're kind of presented as the class that's uniquely capable of solving almost any problem you can think of using magic.
Often called the king of spellcasters, right? But that power, it has limits, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Their main limits boil down to two things, really.
Okay.
First, the spells they actually know they need that spell book.
Uh-huh.
And second, crucially, their spell slots. Managing those limited resources, that's like key to playing a wizard well.
And the analysis in these guides, it makes a really interesting point. Having a big spell book means a wizard can essentially do what other characters specialize in, maybe even better sometimes.
Yeah, they give some great examples, like a wizard with invisibility. They can be almost as stealthy as a rogue.
Uh-huh.
Divination spells. You can gather info way more subtly than just, rolling investigation. Summon a creature, and suddenly you've got a temporary frontliner, like a fighter for a bit. And while they're not healers in the traditional sense.
Right. No cure wounds spamming.
No, definitely not. But a clever wizard might use something significant party healing beyond maybe self-targeting stuff, though. That's not really their strong suit.
That's a powerful idea, though. They're adaptable problem solvers, not just combat mages.
Exactly.
The sources also stress that this class really rewards system mastery. Knowing your stuff pays off big time.
It really does. The more familiar you are with your spells, your features, the more strategic power you actually unlock.
Speaking of features, let's dig into some core abilities the guides detail. We touched on spellcasting, but ritual adept, that sounds pretty important.
Oh, it's fundamental. It's a huge part of their utility. They call the wizard the uncontested master of ritual casting.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means they can cast any spell in their spellbook that has that ritual tag without preparing it for the day and without using a spell slot. So collecting ritual spells becomes incredibly valuable. It gives you this huge toolkit for exploration, utility, info gathering, all without eating into your prepared spells or your slots.
So finding those scrolls, copying them into your book, that's basically expanding your free utility day after day.
Precisely. Huge out-of-combat power.
And what about arcane recovery? The sources say this fixes an old problem.
Yeah, this feature is vital for sustainability. It tackles what players used to call the 5-minute workday,
Yeah. Burn through spells in one fight.
Right. Arcane Recovery lets a wizard get back some expended spell slots up to level 6 combined spell levels, I think, once per day after a short rest.
Okay.
This is absolutely crucial, especially at lower levels. Getting back those first or second level slots for, say, shield or maybe dark vision later in the day.
Yeah.
It helps make sure you're not running on empty.
Makes sense. Burn some power, take a breather, get some defense or utility back, and memorize spell. Adds another layer of flexibility.
Memorize spell is it's a brilliant tactical tool. Lets you swap out one prepared spell from your spell book during a short rest.
Oh, handy.
Yeah. Fantastic if, the situation suddenly calls for a spell you didn't think you'd need that morning.
Right.
Or the sources have this clever suggestion. Cast a long duration buff before the short rest. Then use memorize spell to swap that prepared slot out for something else you might need now, maybe a combat spell or a utility spell you just found.
Oh, that's smart.
It's also good if you've used up your high-level prepared spells and want to swap them for lower-level ones you can still cast.
Getting the buff and freeing up the slot, that's definitely clever. Okay, lastly, spell mastery. Level 18. The guides have some surprising advice on what not to pick.
Right. Level 18, you get to pick a first and a second level spell from your book to cast at will. Unlimited uses, no slots, no prep needed.
Sounds amazing. Unlimited, magic missile.
Well, the sources strongly advise against picking damage spells for this.
Really? Why not? Unlimited damage seems great.
Well, remember, it's only first and second level spells. No unlimited fireballs, sadly.
Ah, okay.
But the why is key. The guides explain that by level 18, your cantrips have scaled up a lot. Firebolt, for instance, hit 4 damage dice way back at level 11. Cantrips often give you more reliable single target damage than most first or second level damage spells at that point. Even things like Shatter or Scorching Ray, they become less optimal for your unlimited slots compared to other choices.
Okay, so cantrips become your baseline damage dealers. What should you pick for spell mastery then, according to the sources?
The strongest choices they highlight are utility, defensive spells, and those single-target control spells, the save or suck ones.
Like what?
Think spells like invisibility for unlimited scouting or stealth, mirror image for constant defense that doesn't use slots or concentration, or maybe Tasha's hideous laughter to repeatedly try and take one enemy out of the fight. Effects you want access to constantly without paying a resource cost.
Unlimited invisibility, or always having mirror image ready.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly powerful for just staying alive and controlling the battlefield.
It fundamentally changes how you can approach things, yeah. Exploration, combat, everything.
Okay, so those are the core features of the Wizard's engine, but wielding that power starts right at character creation. What do these guides say about building your wizard from level 1?
Well, first off, intelligence. That's your main stat, your spellcasting ability. Maxing it out is top priority.
Makes sense. For species, the guides suggest looking for options that shore up the wizard's weaknesses or add unique abilities.
Like what kind of things? What weaknesses?
Well, wizards are notoriously frail, right? So durability is a big one. Extra hit points, maybe some resistances. Innate spellcasting is also great. More spells you don't need to prepare.
Gotcha.
And mobility is key too. Things like flight or teleportation options from your species can make a huge difference in positioning. The guides kind of implicitly rate species based on these benefits.
So you're looking for things that give you more magic, help you survive getting hit, or make you harder to pin down?
Precisely. Anything that complements the class or covers its weak spots. And then there are feats. The sources do a good job breaking down the good ones from the less good ones.
They point out some real winners, like Fey Touched. You mentioned that.
Definitely one they rate highly. Fey Touched is fantastic. Gives you spells from outside the wizard list, crucially including Misty Step.
That bonus action teleport?
Exactly. Incredibly useful for positioning, escaping trouble. Another top one is telekinetic. Really versatile utility, subtly move objects, pull an ally out of danger just with a bonus action.
Nice. What else is good?
Well, they mention things like Skill Expert, good for expanding your non-magical skills. And Shadow Touched, which gives you spells like invisibility. Though they do note, Fey Touched often has better first-level spell options overall.
Okay. There's also a really interesting discussion in the sources about concentration saves, comparing resilient constitution versus warcaster. This is huge for wizards, right? Maintaining those big spells.
Absolutely critical. If you take damage while concentrating, you need to make that save or the spell drops.
So resilient versus warcaster.
The guides analyze this really well. They point out that resilient constitution, which gives you proficiency in con saves, can actually become statistically better than warcaster's advantage at higher levels when your proficiency bonus increases.
Oh, interesting.
However, they raise a really smart strategic point. If you're taking damage often enough that you need to make concentration saves frequently, you might already be in a bad position. So maybe boosting your intelligence to prepare more spells, especially defensive ones like Shield that can stop you getting hit in the first place. That might be a better preventative strategy than just getting better at making the save after you get hit.
That's a fantastic insight. The best defense is not needing to make the save at all.
It shifts the thinking, yeah, from reacting to preventing.
And the sources also call out feats they rate poorly, things to avoid.
Yeah, they explain why some aren't great investments. Like armored feats. They argue multi-classing is almost always more efficient if you really want armor.
Okay.
Elemental Adept. Too niche for a class with such a broad spell list, you're not usually focusing on just one damage type.
And a ritual caster must be pretty pointless for a wizard.
Completely redundant, yeah. You already have Ritual Adept built in. Feats like Keen Mind or Observant are also rated poorly, mostly because their usefulness really depends on the DM and how they run things like investigation or hidden enemies.
So, foundationally, the guides push you towards maxing intelligence, picking a species for survival or unique options, and taking feats that expand your magic, Fey Touched, add utility, telekinetic, or boost concentration, but thinking proactively about defense, too.
That's a great summary of the advice, yeah.
Now, let's talk about the spellbook itself. This is the real heart of the wizard, right? where that whole tool for every situation thing comes alive.
Exactly. The wizard's power isn't just the spells they prepare each day. It's the sheer breadth of options available in their spellbook.
Right.
Being able to copy new spells, find scrolls, and then use features like Memorize Spell means you can potentially access the perfect spell for almost any scenario, even if you didn't plan for it that morning.
It's about having that potential stored away. Okay, let's walk through some key spells, level by level, highlighting the ones the sources really emphasize.
Sure. Starting with cantrips, your bread and butter, slot-free options. Firebolt is the standard for range and reliable damage.
Right.
Toll the Dead often does better damage, uses a better damage type sometimes, necrotic, and targets a wisdom save, which can be good. Shorter range, though.
And the utility cantrips. They mention Mage Hand and Prestidigitation.
Oh, yeah. Profoundly useful and exceptionally versatile, respectively. Absolutely essential tools.
Any other interesting cantrip points?
They point out some neat synergies, like Ray of Frost potentially dropping enemy speed to 0 if an ally uses the slow weapon mastery. And surprisingly, they rate True Strike is actually viable at very low levels if you use it with a crossbow.
True Strike. Really? It usually gets such a bad rap.
I know, but they break down the math for those early levels, comparing its damage potential. It's that kind of specific analysis. On the flip side, cantrips like Gust or Mold Earth, rated poorly because, a shovel is often just better or the effects are too limited.
Mundane items win sometimes. Okay, level 1 spells. Absolute essentials here, according to the sources.
Defenses are critical. Absorb elements and shield. Mandatory, pretty much.
And they really highlight why shield is so good.
Yeah, it's the timing. You cast it after, the attack roll result.
Ah, so you know if it'll actually make a difference.
Exactly. You only use it when you know it turns a hit into a miss. Game changer.
That timing is everything. What about utility and rituals at level 1?
Detect magic is essential utility. The guides suggest casting it as a ritual, basically, whenever you're not concentrating on something else.
Good habit.
Yeah. Alarm, comprehend languages, unseen servant, all good rituals to have in your book for out-of-combat problem solving.
And for controlling enemies early on, those save or suck options.
Sleep is incredibly powerful, especially low levels. The key thing the guides highlight. It works based on hit points, not a saving throw.
Oh, right. Bypasses AC and saves.
Exactly. Makes it reliable against groups of low HP enemies, and it doesn't need upcasting to stay useful against weaker foes later on. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is another solid low-level control spell. And for mobility, Misty Step, that bonus action teleport, is a must-have often grabbed via Fate Touched, like we said.
And for just reliable damage at this level?
Magic Missile. Noted as the best reliable single target damage for level 1 because it just hits. No attack roll needed.
Compared to things like Burning Hands, which makes you get close, or Witch Bolt, which needs really long fights to pay off.
Exactly. Those are rated lower for those reasons. Okay, level 2 spells.
More utility and info gathering opens up here.
Yes, you get key stuff like Augury for hints about the future, Dark Vision, great party buff, long duration, and crucially, no concentration.
Oh, that's nice. Frees up your concentration.
Yeah. See, Invisibility, another reliable counter, also no concentration. And Knock can be surprisingly useful for getting past mundane locks quickly.
What about control and debuffs at level 2?
Hold Person is crippling against humanoids. Tasha's Mind Whip is fantastic targets. Intelligence saves, which are often low, and it forces enemies to make tough choices, maybe burning legendary resistances.
Forcing those resistances out early is huge.
Definitely. Warding Wind offers defense against ranged attacks and some ground effects, again leaving your concentration free, which is rare. And Suggestion is highlighted as extremely versatile, very powerful, with that impressive 8-hour concentration.
8 hours? Wow.
Yeah. Enhanceability also adds a lot of versatility for skill checks. And they mention some situational but useful rituals like Gentle Repose, preserving bodies is important for resurrection later, and Magic Weapon as a decent buff for marshals if they need it.
And the guides steer clear of spells like Crown of Madness or Ray of Enfeeblement?
Generally rated poorly, yeah.
Yeah.
Often unreliable effects where they target saves monsters are good at making.
All right, level 3. This feels like where the power curve really jumps for casters.
Absolutely. Essential spells here. Counterspell and Dispel Magic. The guides are clear. Your party needs someone who can cast these. Dealing with enemy magic is vital.
Blocking spells, removing debuffs, yeah. Mobility.
Fly. Incredibly powerful. Fundamentally changes how you deal with exploration, combat. Requires concentration, though. That's the trade-off.
Worth it often, I bet. And fight-defining spells.
Hypnotic Pattern is a prime example the sources love. Can potentially incapacitate a whole group with one failed save. takes them out of the fight for rounds. That kind of control is just huge.
Taking multiple enemies off the board with one action, yeah, that's massive.
It really can be the difference maker. Other key area control and damage, fireball, of course.
Yeah.
The baseline AoE damage, 86 in a big radius, simple, effective.
Can't argue with fireball.
Then you have erupting earth for difficult terrain, sleet storm, which does difficult terrain and can knock prone or blind, and slow, a powerful mass debuff, really good against enemies relying on multiple attacks.
Like fighters or monsters with multi-attack.
Exactly. Useful utility here includes clairvoyance for safe scouting from afar and sending for reliable long-distance communication.
Okay, moving on to level 4. More potent control, removal, utility.
Definitely. Guides highlight banishment, great single-target removal, especially versus extra-planar guys. Target's charisma saves, often a weak point.
Good tactical choice.
Odaluk's resilient sphere isolates one target on a dex save. Phantasmal Killer is noted for really good scaling damage over time if they fail an int save. And Relithim's Psychic Lance potent, incapacitated on an int save, and you can cast it without line of sight if you know the target's name.
Targeting int saves again seems like a good strategy.
Often a monster weak spot makes those spells reliable. For area control damage, Everard's Black Tentacles can restrain enemies. Sickening Radiance is a powerhouse damage, exhaustion, blindness, combos really well with things that trap enemies inside.
Nasty.
And Synaptic Static, another strong AoE targeting int saves, adds a nasty debuff too.
And the utility spells get really good here.
Immensely useful, yeah. Arcane Eye is called maybe the best scouting spell in the game. Stone Shape's use is just limited by your imagination with stone environments.
Yeah.
Telekinesis is incredibly versatile. Move stuff, move enemies.
And wall spells start coming online properly?
Yes. Wall of Force creates a nearly impenetrable barrier. Basically needs teleportation to bypass. Wall of Stone creates solid cover, divides the battlefield. Huge tactical tools.
Walls seem like they can completely change a fight's layout.
They absolutely can. Other powerful mentions: greater invisibility and polymorph, which is praised for just incredible versatility. Turn an ally into a T-Rex, turn an enemy into a snail.
Huh. Okay, and the sources are less keen on things like Blight, Confusion, Ice Storm at this level.
Yeah, compared to the impact of other options, they generally find them less effective, less reliable, or just less damage for the slot.
All right, we're into the high tiers now. Level 5 and beyond. Spells get really wild here.
They really do. At level 5, Animate Objects stands out. Super powerful, especially animating lots of tiny objects generates a massive number of attacks.
A swarm of angry spoons.
Pretty much. Hold Monster is the upgrade to Hold Person. Works on anything. More essential wall spells, like Wall of Force again. Creation offers amazing utility to make almost any non-living object. And Rary's Telepathic Bond is a ritual for unlimited range party chat.
That's handy.
The guides also mention Dominate Monster and Modify Memory, powerful, but can be tricky, maybe campaign-dependent, or raise ethical flags.
Level 6.
Contingency, the ultimate insurance policy, they call it. Precast a spell that triggers when you want. Expensive component, though.
Worth it for emergencies.
Definitely. Mass Suggestion is just suggestion, but for many targets, often without concentration at this level. Incredibly potent crowd control. Mental Prison, reliable single-target lockdown, in save again. Disintegrate for big single-target damage plus object destruction. And Eyebite gives you a flexible save or suck effect you can apply turn after turn.
Moving up again, level 7.
Force Cage. Another amazing isolation spell. Traps things without an initial save. Very expensive component, though.
Seems like a theme with the really powerful ones.
Often, yeah. Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, your luxury extra-dimensional hideout for safe rests. Reverse gravity hard to resist, messes up whole encounters. Etherealness for scouting or escaping. And teleport becomes available vital for party travel, rescue, but it has that risk of mishap.
Don't want to end up in the wrong place.
Exactly. They also touch on Simulacrum. Absurdly powerful, potentially game-breaking, but complicated and often gets DM scrutiny.
I can imagine. Level 8. Campaign-shaking stuff.
Yeah, Maze. Removes a target, no initial save. They need an int check to escape. Brutal.
Just gone for a bit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Feeble Mind. Crippling, especially against casters or smart foes. Reduces int and chaw to 1. Devastating.
Ouch.
Clone. Offers effective immortality. Expensive, takes time, but a powerful safety net. Anti-magic field is situational but can just shut down all magic nearby. And Sunburst for big AoE radiant damage plus blinding.
And finally, level 9, the absolute peak.
Unsurprisingly, Wish. Universally rated the best spell. Most complicated, too. Replicates other spells, potentially bends reality. But the guides stress caution about the costs and risks. Using it for anything other than spell duplication can have major downsides.
The ultimate power with ultimate risk.
Exactly. Beyond Wish, you have Mass Polymorph turn lots of things into other things. Meteor Swarm, the ultimate AoE damage spell, huge range, massive damage.
Boom.
Prismatic Wall, the ultimate layered defense or area control. Psychic Scream, arguably the best AoE saver suck. Stunned on a failed int save. Just watch your allies.
Good point.
Foresight, called the best defensive buff. Advantage on everything, disadvantage on attacks against you, 8-hour duration, no concentration, just incredible.
No concentration, wow.
Yeah, or travel, summoning powerful beings, and imprisonment for permanent removal of a target. Very expensive, needs setup, but it's permanent.
It's clear as wizards level up, their power just transforms. They're reshaping challenges, reality itself.
That escalating scale, that versatility, that's precisely what the guides emphasize as the wizard's core strength.
So bringing it all together then, how do these sources wrap up the wizard's overall power and place in the game?
Well, the guides conclude that the wizard's strength really comes from that unique synergy of their features. Ritual casting for free utility, arcane recovery for sustain, memorized spell for flexibility, combined with, and this is the critical piece, their access to the game's widest, and you could argue, most powerful spell list.
And understanding how all those pieces fit, exploring the strategies behind the spells and features, that's what unlocks the real potential.
Exactly. This kind of deep dive into the source material, it gives you the map to becoming a really well-informed, effective wizard player.
That wraps up our deep dive into the 2024 D&D Wizard, guided by these really in-depth sources from RPG BOT. We've gone from their core identity, building them up right through that incredible spellbook.
Yeah, it's pretty clear why they're often called the king of spellcasters, reshaping reality with enough knowledge and prep time.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? Here's where it gets really interesting. After exploring all these insights, how would you approach building and playing a wizard?
Would you lean into those control spells? The utility rituals, maybe the big devastating damage, or find some unique mix?
Think about the problems that only your spellbook, armed with this knowledge, could solve.